All right, so it's 7 o'clock on Monday, February 7th, 2022. I'll call the meeting to order for Adelaide Metcalfe Council meeting. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof?
Yes, Mayor Curtis, I have one. Having missed the January the 17th meeting where I had a conflict on the Crothers McFarland drain, I'm just going to reinstate that. The form has been filed, but this is my verbal declaration. Okay. It was 7A on January 17th.
Perfect. You either have a really good memory or you have that written down somewhere. You're muted, but that's okay. We'll continue on. We have the minutes of the previous meeting, and those are the January 17th meeting minutes. Mover and seconder for those.
I'll move that, Mayor Smith.
Okay, Councillor Clark and Deputy Mayor Hendricks. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. And thank you, Councillor Clark, for moving that. And I'll just let the folks listening in on and watching on YouTube know that Councillor Clark is here. She just doesn't have her video on because of the internet services. So she'll just pop in with her voice every once in a while to ask questions or move or second anything. So the correspondence, our upcoming conferences, seminars, and meetings. Our next regular meeting is on Tuesday, February 22nd. And that's Tuesday because the Monday is Family Day, and hopefully everybody will have a chance to do something with their families on the 21st. Item number 2 is from St. Clair Region Conservation Authority, and it's their annual general meeting, and that is on Thursday, February 24th. Councillor McKinnon.
Yes, I just wondered if any of council or the administrator or some of his staff would like to attend. It's being held in person in Forest, Ontario.
Okay. If anybody is interested, if you just reach out to probably Mike and then our clerk to then RSVP. And then our meeting after that would be on March 7th. The recommended reading, so item number 1 is from the Middlesex London Health Unit, and it's their Board of Health January 2022 meeting summary. Item number 2 is from the Ministry of Infrastructure. It's the Ontario Connects, bringing high-speed internet to every community, and it's their presentation from January. And then the action required, these are the resolutions. So it's the City of Brantford, and it's closing the revolving door of justice. Any thoughts on this one, Councillor Brody?
Yeah, I read that. I moved to support it because I know that's a challenge here. They'll basically arrest people for stealing vehicles is the big one right now, and before you know it, they're out, and they're back at it again, and then they're in, and then they're out. So it is a problem. So I would support that actually.
Okay. And do we have a seconder for that, or Deputy Mayor Hendricks, are you wanting to comment?
Yeah, I'll second it with the comment that, I mean, it was just on the news a month ago about somebody stalking women in London, and before he even, you know, he was out on bail right away and redoing his stalking activities. So I think it's a good resolution.
Okay, so that's moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Councillor Clark, do you have your mic unmuted, or are you just waiting to vote?
Just waiting to vote.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and that is carried. The next one there is from the town of Aurora, and it's to dissolve the Ontario Land Tribunal. Any thoughts on this one, Councillor Brody?
Just a comment. I know red tape is a big problem, and I don't like a lot of it, but I just don't know enough about that. Just reading that letter to basically say I was going to support or not. I probably need a little more info on it.
Okay. Councillor McKinnon?
Following what Councillor Brody said, like if the OLT was dissolved, in my mind, it didn't state how the ratepayers could appeal and what action they would have to take, if it would be through the courts or what. So I would like a little more information on it as well.
Okay. Councillor Clark?
Yeah, I was, at first blush, I was not in support of it because we don't have enough information. Because if you are going to take the mechanism away that's in place for people to appeal, what's the alternative? So I think in principle, I like what they're saying. However, you have to provide an alternative, and they've not done that in their correspondence.
Okay. So are we wanting to have our clerk go and get gather some more information, or are we wanting just to carry on from this? I just don't know how much time we want Mike to be working on it.
Yeah.
Probably
I would
just,
propose that we let it just let it die for now.
Be filed.
And if the organization, the individual that forwarded the letter, if he watches our council meeting, he'll know that he needs to do a little bit more homework.
Okay. Alrighty, so the next one is the support letter for the Middlesex London Health Unit, and it's the mosquito larvae permission. This is an annual thing that comes around. Deputy Mayor Hendricks, is that to move it?
Yeah. Yes, I'd like to move that.
Okay. Councillor McKinnon? Okay, all those in favor?
I have a question. I have a question first. Sorry. Is it up to, like, is Coulter's department responsible for spraying this, or the county looks after the program 100%?
Does somebody want to answer that one, or? We'll go with Mike.
Through the mayor to mayor's council. I think this applies to anybody that wishing to spread. I think it's more geared to private contractors that are looking to spread. They apply through the MOECP. We have a blanket letter of support that allows it to happen. So whether it's a county, but I still think they get contracted workers to do it. So, yeah.
So it's.
But you have to apply for licensing even as an independent person, correct? Like, isn't that the gist of it?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
It's the Middlesex London Health Unit. I believe they contract it out, and then they drop whatever little puck thing it is in all the catch basins. So when you're driving around, you're to stop at a catch basin, you'll see that there's different color of spray paint on it. So I think last year it was like blue or whatever it is.
Blue. It was blue.
Where they have put the product into the catch basin for the mosquitoes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, not a problem. Okay, is there any other questions on this one? All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. And then the last one here, it's a resolution from the County of Middlesex, and it's to support the Thames Valley District School Board Trustees distribution. I can't say that right now. For the term for 2022 to 2026. Okay. Is there any questions on this one? Councillor McKinnon?
I was going to move it to support it.
Okay, seconder.
I'll second it.
Okay, Councillor Clark, is there any discussion on it? All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. Okay, so we just need to have a motion to receive and file items 1, 2, and 4. Deputy Hendricks and Councillor Brody, all those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. And we'll move into our staff reports. And our first one is the 4th quarter and year end for 2021 building activity summary. And we have our CBO here, Arnie.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. And through the mayor, I'm here tonight, pleased to present the 4th quarter and year end report to Adelaide Metcalfe, outlining activities from this past year and in the 4th quarter. So I'll scroll through my staff report, and if there's any questions, by all means, reach out. Obviously, this past year, we started our service agreement for the 5 municipalities. That's Middlesex Centre, Lucan Biddulph, Adelaide Metcalfe, Southwest Middlesex, and North Middlesex. And in my first table of the report, I outlined the activity in each of those municipalities for council's information, what we're doing. And then following tables sort of outline what's going on in Adelaide Metcalfe over the past year and the past quarter. And from what I found, generally it's a consistent year with years in the past. In total, we issued 90 building permits at a value of about $11.8 million, which again is a fairly standard year. Service fees for Middlesex Centre to provide the service to Adelaide Metcalfe this past year total approximately $57,000. So we certainly have brought in enough revenue to pay for that service agreement. And looking forward, we expect a similar year next year. So generally, it's a good news report. It's fairly standard and constant.
Okay, thank you, Arnie. Is there any questions at all on the report? Councillor Brody?
So our total fees for the year was 57.8, which I can't remember what they were in the past, but that's got to be considerably less for us. And I just want to make sure there wasn't any, people waiting for services, being joint with 5 municipalities or 4 or whatever the number is. I just wanted to make sure that everybody's being looked after, as quick and as well as they possibly can. So I just wonder, Arnie, if you could just attest to that for us, please.
Yeah, certainly through the mayor to Councillor Brody. We have met the provincial standards are a 10-day turnaround for a typical building permit application. Through the busiest of seasons, we're at an 8 to 10-day turnaround. At this time, we're inside of 5 days, even 3 days for a building permit. But we will get to the plans review within 10 days. From time to time, not all the information is there, but we do communicate to the builder what's outstanding. So we're comfortable in saying that we do meet our service standards quite readily.
Okay, that's good. Okay, is there any other questions at all? Okay, seeing none, so just have the motion that the fourth quarter and year-end 2021 billing activity summary be received for information. Okay, Deputy Mayor Hendricks and Councillor McKinnon, all those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. Okay, thank you, Arnie. If you want, you can stick around, but I know that you have lots of other things to do if you want to go.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, the next staff report is the noise and nuisance bylaws, and we have our clerk, Mike.
Okay, through the mayor to members of council, you have before your report and accompanying draft noise and draft nuisance bylaws for consideration. The bylaws have been developed in conjunction with the County of Middlesex Legal and our contracted bylaw enforcement officer. Both bylaws were developed using standard language and format used by many municipalities in Ontario. So they have been tried and tested. The inclusion of language in regards to unfounded complaints is not as common and is usually found in fire-related bylaws for false alarms. We've included this provision as we have limited resources and no full-time bylaw enforcement officer to continually respond to potentially repeated and unfounded complaints. We hope this clause is used sparingly and fines in general sparingly, and prefer to always side on educating residents on the bylaw and potential penalties. I'd like to read correspondence received by Kim Mullen, legal counsel representing Trevor Keller, Fred and Gail Cahill, and Chris and Margot Meyer. And this was distributed to council. So we are counsel to Trevor Keller, Fred and Gail Cahill, and Chris and Margot Meyer, all whom own properties within the immediate vicinity of the Sydenham Ridge Estates event venue, and who have raised concerns about noise caused by the Sydenham Ridge operation. Our clients have been awaiting the presentation of a draft noise, nuisance, and licensing bylaws to council in advance of the 2022 event season. We have reviewed with our clients the draft noise and nuisance bylaws, which are on the agenda for consideration by council. Number one, while these bylaws appear to be adequate as bylaws of general application throughout the township, they should not be considered adequate to deal with the operations of Sydenham Ridge specifically. Our clients anticipate that the more detailed regulation of operations will be forthcoming in the draft event venue licensing bylaw. The $200 set fine penalty does not appear to our clients to be an adequate deterrent, and in the case of a venue like Sydenham Ridge, could be seen merely as the cost of doing business. And number 3, our clients have concerns about the inclusion of item 20 in Schedule A to the draft noise bylaw. Inclusion of this item would appear to empower a bylaw enforcement officer or police officer determine in his or her sole discretion that a complaint is unfounded and to impose a fine on the person complaining. This could create a chilling effect whereby residents avoid voicing valid concerns over fears of being subject to a monetary penalty. And I would like to also read just correspondence we received today by email and also distributed by council. This is from Trevor Keller as a follow-up. And it says, after further discussion on our part, we would like to make 2 additional points for council's consideration. In item 1 of the Schedule A of council might consider prohibiting persistent noise by adding the words excessive or persistent noise likely to disturb. One example is a dog barking recognized by item 11 in the same schedule, but there are many other types of and sources. We would also encourage that council ensure that there's coverage system in place to actually enforce these 2 bylaws. Noise and nuisance parties often occur outside normal working hours, Monday to Friday, and require a timely response. I would like to note that Morgan and I met with this group today by teleconference. The discussion was friendly, rational, and hopefully productive. And I do appreciate the understanding and rational discussion that did take place. And just to address some of the issues outlined, most of the group's direct concerns would be implemented through a proposed venue licensing bylaw and not through the noise bylaw directly, but the noise and nuisance bylaws establish a tool to be referenced throughout the licensing bylaw. The noise bylaw is to be applied across the township, not to solve a single issue. The proposed fines are in line with adopted municipal bylaws in effect in municipalities in Ontario. The set fine schedule will be forwarded to the province for review of reasonableness. It should be noted that beyond the set fine schedule, bylaw enforcement matters can be escalated to court proceedings and fines up to $5,000 can be issued. I have spoken to the inclusion of the unfounded complaints as at the sole discretion of the responding officer to make a decision on a fine. To reiterate, we expect to using this sparingly and much prefer the educational route in this respect. Ultimately, the province, through the set fine review, will also determine the reasonableness of this fine. Through Mr. Keller's comments regarding the additional language of adding persistent, number 1 to Schedule A, staff have no issues making minor amendments to the bylaw to capture this request. In regards to after-hours response, we will be providing an after-hours numbers for bylaw enforcement matters. Staff will closely monitor and evaluate the inclusion of this service. Staff have noted some minor fixes to the bylaw, such as references to nuisance bylaw in section 20 of the noise bylaw and some general formatting fixes. So in response, staff suggests the following recommendations. Number 1, a recommendation to approve the bylaws as presented with the minor aforementioned amendments, or a recommendation to defer the bylaws, making any suggested changes and to be presented back at the February 22nd meeting of council, where they'd all be together with the licensing bylaws. We expect to bring that to the 22nd. So I would be happy to answer any questions. Morgan, feel free to jump in as he's been closely involved with this as well.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Before we go to questions and comments from council, Morgan, is there anything in addition that you'd like to comment on?
Mike did a pretty good job at summarizing how we got here today. I think the reliance on the bylaw framework is important to note and how they are intertwined. So the council hasn't had the opportunity to see the licensing bylaw yet, but within that licensing bylaw, we talk about things like significant events or incidents. A significant event or incident would be a charge under the bylaw, for example. So the licensing bylaw that we're looking to propose to council would basically be recognized by a 3 strike and you're out rule. You come, you get your building or your permit to operate an event venue, and if you are found to be a nuisance or have an infraction under the noise bylaw or other infraction under other bylaws that we have, then that would go against your business license. And then within 3 years, if you have 3 strikes, then you're in front of council, basically appealing why you no longer have a business license. Outside of that, I think, as I say, Mike did a pretty good job. We did have what I would say is a good discussion with the concerned neighbors group, where we were able to at least identify the philosophy in how we're developing these bylaws and presenting them to council. As Mike did mention, they didn't like that the one clause that I'm calling the accountability clause. I think both sides of the bylaw should be accountable. If you are going to submit a noise complaint, it's probably going to be noisy. So it's going to be difficult to capture that, to be honest with you, because you might get a call at 11 p.m. And it might be peak noise. The bylaw officer might respond around midnight, and that peak noise has already dissolved. So it is very challenging to try to deal with some of these issues relating to noise and to measure them. They are subjective at best and will be left to the professionalism of the bylaw officer. But at the same time, I guess the test against the level of evidence required for us to charge and or prosecute somebody based on an unfounded bylaw complaint is rather high. So just kind of wanted to note that it is a very tough challenge to chase, but I think we found a pretty good balance across all of these bylaws. I guess the last thing, since I'm chatting up a storm here, I might as well say, we did have a tough time trying to balance the residential pockets that we have with the rural nature of the township and the commercial corridor. Again, I think we found a pretty good balance here, but that's why we're testing it with council. So I'll park there for now.
Okay, thank you, Morgan. Councilor Brody, I think you had your hand up.
I've got a few comments. I don't like the part here of we're bringing in a noise and nuisance bylaw, and all of a sudden it seems to be, again, a complaint driven by 3 people on one location. This is supposed to be something that's broad spectrum across the township, which I've never been for more bylaws. I think they cause more problems than not most of the time, but that's my opinion. So I don't like the thought of this. All of a sudden, this is a group going after one location again. I do like the way that it was written in the first place. I think Morgan's probably done the best job as he possibly can. So I don't think changing anything just because there's one basically group of a party complaining about one person. We have to think about this as a whole broad general thing for the township. This isn't something that we're just doing for 1 or 2 parties. One thing I'm going to ask is, how many noise and bylaw nuisance complaints did we get across the township over the past year? Is something Morgan or Mike can answer?
I took a quick look. I knew this question was coming. So since I've been there mid-July, we've only received 1 informal request through a council member. Previous to that, we didn't have anything on file that I could see from 2021.
So there you go.
That could be that there wasn't, they did know a bylaw is coming and to solve the issue, and we couldn't do much in the meantime. No, to answer your question, I know of 1.
Thank you.
Well, and I've received complaints in Kerwood about certain dogs barking, but there hasn't been a mechanism in place to address that. So this bylaw will do that.
Okay, is there any other questions? I see Councilor Flynn's hands up.
As well, if you recall on Center Road, the residential units behind Rona, when they were building, they had a complaint about the construction noise that was going on, and we were unable to do anything about that. And this covers that as well. I think the bylaw placed before us is a good bylaw. I think we've covered even excessive, as Mr. McKellar had addressed. It's under section 1. It states about excessive noise likely to disturb when prohibited. So I think it's a good bylaw.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McKinnon. I see Deputy Hendricks, you have your little hand up on your box.
I do. I've turned my video off because I froze up a minute ago and I think my internet connection isn't very good. I was just wondering if in researching other bylaws, whether there were any bylaws that specified certain decibel readings, you know, like because 40 is conversation and 60 is something like a fridge or a dishwasher or a toilet flushing. I'm just wondering if there are any bylaws that put actual numbers in place.
Through the mayor to the deputy mayor. This obviously did come up in discussion with county legal. They advise that we don't go again with the decibel levels. I guess in case law, it's been difficult to even prosecute with those. And again, when they're getting there, when they're measuring noise, the equipment has been challenged in those cases as well. So it was at the advice of the county legal that we did not go with registered decibel levels.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Clark.
Mike, you spoke to, it was one of the things I was thinking about, the fee schedule. So is it just coincidental that everything's $200, or I'm assuming you guys just didn't pull that out of a hat, that you alluded to that it was sort of consistent with other municipalities. So I just wondered why it's all the same, or maybe that's just the way it is.
Again, at the recommendation of county legal, to be perfectly clear, they did initially release $150. We came back just to get better cost recovery through the $200, as we do have contracted service. Even the province, like as I mentioned, the province will review these for reasonableness. So they will decide whether $200 is too much or it is reasonable. So
okay, so it goes through another gate. Okay, and then my other thought, what was it? I've lost it now. Sorry.
Is there any other questions or comments at all?
Oh, sorry, Mayor Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we hired the bylaw officer, when we contracted for that service, it was 24/7, I believe. So I don't think the Monday to Friday thing, that concern that was brought up, is an issue, because I believe when we contracted their service that it was to be for 24/7.
through the mayor to Councillor Clark, yes, it does provide for after hours service. It's just we haven't advertised that. It's been complete and almost driven through us at this point.
Okay. Is there any other questions or comments at all? I'll just make a couple comments if I could. I think overall, I do think they are two very good bylaws. I think they're well-rounded. I don't think it's specific to a certain issue that is before us in the municipality. I think it's overall we're touching on every aspect of noise and nuisance in the municipality. I have my thoughts with bylaws are always, it's always best to have a good bylaw on hand if something happens. And this is one of those instances where we probably should have had a noise or nuisance bylaw on the books years ago, so then we wouldn't have to be sitting here to figure it out just because of one issue that's happening. It's, for me, I look back at a bylaw that we dealt with last term or 2 terms ago, where it was dealing with animals and, livestock animals or, pets in the village of Kerwood. And this is something very similar to it, where there's a complaint that has came in and talking about it. And it's best to have that bylaw in place beforehand. And it's better to be, it's best not to be reactive and being proactive. And I think this is just being in place to deal with a large range of issues that we could be running into. And somebody has that, in the toolbox to be able to use, this bylaw. And Councilor McKinnon is, she's right, or I forget who it was that mentioned Rona Moffat Powell, that we had a noise complaint there. I know that we've had some dog barking complaints that are happening throughout the night, and some other ones I'm sure that have come up. So I think overall they're good bylaws. The one suggestion that I have, because this kind of goes hand in hand with the business licensing bylaw as well, is that maybe we should give these bylaws the first and second reading. And then once council sees the licensing bylaw as well, if there's anything that we need to tweak, we still have that opportunity because the third reading isn't given yet. And then have it so then on the next council meeting that we give that third reading if there's nothing else that we want to see updated at all, just for that silver second look. Councillor Clark, I know you had your hand up, and then Councillor Brody.
Yeah, so basically I was thinking the exact same thing about not giving it full 3 readings tonight. So I agree with that. And the other thing too is I think going out of the gate, I think whether it be a complainant or the person that's causing the problem, I think hopefully we can start off with an educational approach that Mike Barnier alluded to, and then to give everybody a chance. And then if it's being abused one way or the other, then at that point we lock down and put the teeth of the bylaw in place.
Okay, Councillor Brody, and then Councillor McKinnon.
I agree with what Sue said and a bit what you have said, Curtis, but I hate delay. I hate delay. As much as I'm not totally for this bylaw, I don't like the idea of delaying it again, because that's just going to put more questions, more worries. As Morgan and Mike have said, this is a pretty solid bylaw. They've done their homework on it. It's right in line with everybody else. So for that reason, I don't think if we're going to do it that we should basically delay third reading. I think we might as well just go ahead with it, because the licensing bylaw is going to address some other issues, and more people can have some comments on it.
Okay. Councillor McKinnon.
Through you, Mayor Curtis, to Clerk Mike. Will the licensing bylaw be ready for the second meeting in February?
Through the mayor to Councillor McKinnon, that is definitely our hope. Again, we do have a draft licensing bylaw now. We have to meet with the lawyer. We're hoping on Thursday, and we're hoping to turn that around quickly, because we would really like to get it out to some of the groups for their review as well beforehand. So it'll be tight, but yes, that's ultimately the hope, to get it before on February 22nd.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Is there any other questions or comments before we go to the recommendation or the motion the council would like to do? Okay, so the recommendation in front of us, and that's for approval, and that it gets the first, second, and third reading. Do you have a mover and seconder for that, or another motion? Councillor Brody.
I'd move that one.
Okay, so you're going to move the recommendation. And do you have a seconder? Okay, Deputy Mayor Hendricks. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing Councillor McKinnon.
Could we add, as amended, those small amendments that we had? So just clarification on that.
Yeah. So Mike, I think you had a little bit of a change to the recommendation, but it's for approval with the updates. And I think you have a fancy word in there that I don't know what it was, but Councillor.
I don't think I was for the updates.
Okay. What were the updates?
That tell us again what the updates were, because I was basically for what it was saying in the first place.
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Brody, they are very minor adjustments. They are grammar, a reference to a wrong bylaw in one of the bylaws. No substantive changes to it though.
Okay, because there was one comment in that one letter from, they wanted to change wording and some other things, so that was not what my intentions are.
Yeah, so the update is just simply the grammar. It's coming from staff, not from, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that was moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, and that's carried. Councillor Clark, you voted it in favor. You just were
Late to the game, yes.
okay. Excellent. And so that's that one. Always lost somebody. Now we'll move into our next staff report, and that is the site plan agreement for A to Z storage, and that's Morgan.
Okay, so council's probably seen or remembers seeing this one pop up on the agenda maybe once or twice already. This is the site plan that we had to make some adjustments to the site plan agreement to recognize the current negotiating situation for the servicing agreement along Center Road. So essentially we received a site plan for A to Z storage on September 13th for a proposed development along Center Road. The applicant is proposing a self-storage facility. The site plan application was circulated to all relevant parties. Our legal folks at the county prepared the site plan agreement in consultation with township staff and our Middlesex County assigned planner. As I say, the one issue that we needed to find a way to resolve is the outstanding servicing agreement negotiations. So what we put in this site plan agreement is basically what did Wayne call it? An eyes wide open clause. So we're currently negotiating an agreement. We don't know what the end of that negotiating is going to look like. So if there's municipal services at the time of connecting to municipal services, then you connect to municipal services. If there's not municipal services available, then we move over to local servicing. Unfortunately, it's not the most efficient use of land at that time, and if we ever get to that point, we'll have a bunch of documents to update, including our official plan and our zoning bylaw to recognize this, but we do have other tools to help move this development forward. So what we're really trying to do is still encourage and allow development to happen on Center Road while we work through this servicing agreement discussion with our service provider over there. So I guess at this time, if council has any questions, I'm happy to answer any of them. Otherwise, I kindly ask council to approve the recommendation as outlined in the report.
Okay, thank you, Morgan. Is there any questions or comments at all? Okay, not seeing any. So we need to have a motion then from council that we approve the site plan. Okay, Councillor McKinnon, Councillor Brody. Is there any discussion at all? Everyone's just eager to vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. All right, and then Morgan, you got the next one as well. So that's the cost of living adjustment for 2022.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to council. As council will remember, we undertook a review of our compensation program and redevelopment of that compensation program in 2020. We implemented it on January 1st, 2021. Through this review, council wanted to ensure a competitive yet balanced approach to compensation to recognize recruitment and retention issues in small and rural municipalities. This program will be reviewed every 5 years to ensure market alignment and that its intent still meets council's wishes. So as part of the regular maintenance of the compensation program, employers look to age the program each year using a cost of living factor. By aging the grid each year, it ensures that the compensation program generally aligns with what we're seeing in terms of market value. Through our analysis, which includes a review of the consumer price index and cost of living adjustments made by neighboring or area municipalities, we are proposing the council consider a 2% cost of living adjustment to each of the council, staff, and fire services compensation programs. Happy to take any questions from council at this time. Otherwise, I'd again kindly ask council to approve the recommendation in the report.
Thank you, Morgan. Is there any questions or comments at all?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, Councillor Clark.
So this isn't just COLA for the year. This is, you're sticking COLA onto the actual salary so that it's permanently tied to it. Is that correct?
Yeah, more so the compensation program itself that ends up being the salaries, including council and fire services. So fire services pulls from a pot, I believe, using a point system. So we're just going to increase that pot by 2%. Noting that we are proposing in the budget a compensation review of the fire services group as well.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, so we have the recommendation in front of us, and that is that the municipal wage grid be adjusted by the cost of living increase of 2% for 2022 and receive pre-budget approval, and for that employees, fire services, and council wages be retroactively adjusted to January 1st for the calendar year. So do we have a mover and seconder? Deputy Hendricks and Councillor Brody. All those in favor? And that's carried. Oh, opposed?
Opposed.
There we go. And that is carried. So that is the cost of living adjustment. So the next report is the Kerwood Park improvements phase 2 discussion. Morgan.
Okay, let me just pull up this presentation. On to some fun stuff. Make sure I can see everybody. So I can see when our clerk rolls his eyes at me. There we go. Okay, can everybody see the presentation? Awesome. Okay, so as council remember, we're obviously investing quite a bit of time and effort and dollars into the Kerwood Park. One of the things that we wanted to chat with council about during the budget discussions was Kerwood Park and what we're proposing to council to consider through budget. Much of this council has seen previously through our phased in approach discussions earlier last year, but we just wanted to get a little ahead of the budget conversations just to throw this out there, listen to what council has to say. If there's any adjustments, then we can make those before we enter our budget discussions. And so of course the project summary, the township is looking to improve Kerwood Park through a new facility or community space, improved accessibility throughout the park, construct accessible washrooms, refresh existing amenities, and encourage new park-related activities. The project approach, as decided by council last year, was phased in over 2 years. We're really just trying to make sure that the park is still usable for outdoor activities. We are still in a global pandemic, and more so in 2021, where we wanted to make sure that people were still able to get outside and enjoy most of the park while it was under construction. We also wanted to take the opportunity to leverage additional funding opportunities that might be available or that might present themselves. And that's where we turned a lot of our attention to at the later portion or the last quarter of last year, 2021. So phase 1 was to finalize the washroom and pavilion facility, including any kind of additional electrical work required for the, I guess it's now the new old pavilion that's on site. Phase 2, we're looking at a refresh of existing amenities, and at the time it included ball diamonds, dugouts, lights, bleachers, parking lot, aesthetics, and landscaping. So really a quick update on phase 1. We're pretty much there. The building's there. Talking to Spreets, we might be able to take occupancy as early as 2 weeks from now. However, we're not in that much of a rush to gain access to the building because there's still some a deficiency and a final walkthrough to go through. But as you know, it included a new pavilion. We have 2 accessible washrooms, a kitchenette, a mechanical room, and an equipment storage. And what's remaining is, and Coulter, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit more to this or what's left over, but I can pitch it over to you if you'd like.
Yeah, you pretty much covered it, Morgan. Just some small wiring issues left over. some paint touch-ups, and obviously final grading. We kind of ran into winter time, so that slowed that down a little bit. But other than that, I think the building looks really good, and I was really happy with the contractor.
So now we're looking to purchase a bunch of inventory, toilet paper, cleaning supplies, mops, buckets, that kind of stuff, so that we can get this pavilion and washroom facility open for the beginning of the year, of the usable year, I guess. Phase 2. So what we're proposing to look at through phase 2 is the ball diamonds, including the fencing that surrounds the ball diamonds. We're looking at replacing or adding dugouts at this time. We're looking at the baseball diamond lighting, things like bleachers, probably a hard surface parking lot, aesthetics and landscaping. And this is a new one. We've heard from the community a couple of times that an outdoor ice rink would be a nice public park amenity. I know that there was a time at the township where there was an ice rink in the park, and then it was shut down due to insurance reasons. I think those insurance products have changed since 2015 or so, when the ice rinks have been removed. We did reach out to the insurance company, and basically the nuts and bolts of it is, if you're maintaining it, you insure it. So we have had some preliminary discussions with the Optimist Club. We would like to get a little bit more involved and partner closely with the Optimist Club in terms of the ice rink. So we're waiting to hear back from those discussions from the Optimist Club. I guess they're meeting on Wednesday night, but really what we're looking to do is develop a stronger relationship and partnership with the Optimist Club. The ice rink is a good platform to do that, and we'll see what kind of solution we can come to at least by this upcoming winter, because I'd really like to have an ice rink out at Kerwood Park. Coulter keeps challenging me to an ice hockey game, so we'll have to see what happens. So the other thing that we did ask during the budget survey last year was really what additional park amenities did the community want to see. We're basically checking, I would say, 85% of these boxes. I think there was a splash pad in there somewhere. That would be extremely cost prohibitive to have a splash pad, because we would have to treat the water to a point that it's drinkable. And we're looking at $150,000 to $200,000 estimated to be able to pull that off. So we're trying to take an incremental approach here. If there is opportunity in the future to consider a splash pad, I would certainly bring it to council's consideration at that time. The one thing that we have had challenges with is the barn that's on site. Currently, the barn holds the water and the hydro service. It is very expensive to move, definitely the hydro, maybe not as expensive to move the water, but it is very expensive to move the hydro. What I'd like to do is propose to council, just because of budget constraints, that we add a new phase 3 in here, where we look at what we can do with the barn in 2023. And that way I have a better chance of providing good options to council in terms of what we can do with this thing. And of course, some of the potential options are to repair it. We did have an engineer's report that says it would be cost prohibitive to do so. But in the grand scheme of things, we have a couple costs that we have to balance, including moving out hydro service if we were to tear it down. So it might just be a better option, including additional storage, to rebuild the barn. But I need to test that with council and the community, because to be honest, I don't fully understand the community significance to the barn. So I do have some more research to do in that respect. So I'd like to punt that ball down the road a little bit. In terms of timing and service levels, so again, we spent the last quarter of 2021 applying for a number of grants. I think council is well aware of those grants, being the accessibility, seniors and community development grants. Unfortunately, our grant applications were not successful, but we're going to continue to chase those dollars, because it's nice to use provincial funds for these types of projects as much as possible. So this did delay the planning and construction of phase 2, because we were hoping to get it done before we open up the park. However, because we weren't sure what those grant applications looked like, if they were successful or not, they did come with different financing strategies that we would have had to address through the budget. So in saying that, we're proposing to start construction of phase 2 once our park rentals or other time commitments have been completed. So likely in September, middle of September, we'll start phase 2 construction, and then we'll be primed for spring 2023. The one thing that we are looking at through the budget, and of course the park, because we do now have a washroom facility there with a kitchenette, so on and so forth. We do need to do some additional park maintenance, including facility cleaning, garbage removal, grass cutting, etc. So what we're looking to do is propose a plan to council through the budget discussions, where we would bring this type of work in-house so that we can test and learn through the summer to see how we can reduce costs, create a more efficient, effective service for 2023. Through bringing it in-house, we still have to drag the dugouts. So we still need some form of piece of equipment to maintain, or not the dugout, sorry, the baseball diamond itself. So we want to have a pristine baseball diamond for the ball tournament, so on and so forth. So we'll have to purchase a piece of equipment. That piece of equipment can double up as a lawnmower as well. This opportunity to increase service levels also addresses some of the things that we heard through the public feedback of the budget survey of the park. So increase maintenance, get rid of those weeds in the baseball diamond itself, and cut the grass better. So again, we'll further talk about service levels through budget discussions. Lastly, I think got a couple more slides. So this is the financing strategy that Johnny put together. It aligns with essentially what we were looking at last year. We're in the ballpark about, no pun intended, I guess, $426,000 to complete phase 2, which includes phase 2 improvements. We do have no dollar amount issued to the barn at this time because we're hoping to kick that down the road a little bit. We're looking at electronic signage, automating the keypad and lock system and lighting system, because they'll all integrate into the same system, so that we can control the park more remotely and not have to bounce back and forth all the time. We're still looking at about $426,000. Johnny's included that in the budget. If council has any discussions, well, it looks like Johnny's got his hand up.
If you don't mind, just one thing to note too, and this will come forward during the budget discussions, that although it shows $426,000 here as the total project cost, there is a plan to utilize federal gas tax funding. Last year, we did receive an additional amount that we brought forward to council to put that to reserves to put forth in a better financial strategy in the 2022 budget. So that being said, that would reduce this total cost to the overall levy. It would be about $239,000 of federal gas tax would be used against this. So that results in about $187,000 that would fall to the levy instead of that 426.
Okay, thank you, Johnny. So next steps for us anyway, depending on 2022 budget discussions. We did have an RFP that was released in 2018 that resulted in procuring spreads for basically the project of start to finish. So we would engage with spreads, give them our wish list, to talk to them about how to do a lighting, electronic signage, site layout, all that other good stuff. They prepare the tender package, likely release it in May, and then we'll have ample opportunity to procure a construction company to complete the work. Spreads would help procure and manage the necessary contractors to complete phase 2, so that worked really well for us for phase 1. The work's to start at the end of the summer once our commitments have been completed. And then in 2023 budget, we'll look to determine how to deal with the new phase 3, which is the barn. So at that time, I'll be quiet now and answer any questions or let council have a discussion.
Okay, thank you, Morgan, for the update and the forward to the phase 2 and phase 3. Are there any questions, comments, discussion on the Kerwood Park presentation? Deputy Mayor Hendricks, I think you had your hand up.
Just a comment. I know the Optimist Club is really hoping to get a ball tournament together this year, if there's any way to get it in. So they'll be happy to know you won't have the park ripped up in the middle of when they want to do that. So I'm happy to report the time frame to them.
Okay, Councilor Brody.
Yeah, not to take through, Curtis, not to take up too much time on this, because I'm sure we got to talk about the budget, but I think the main focus is to have that park working this summer, and certainly like the idea of doing the construction later, because that'll just, it's going to hurt the park all summer if we start early. And so a lot of the stuff, I'm reading some of the comments from the budget survey, and there's great comments here. I think we need to focus on the main diamond as being our main. The Optimist tournament is a big thing for our community, and so we need to have a back diamond, but we don't need to have a super back diamond. It only gets used during the day, not at night. So there's things that we have to set out when we put this tender out. Soccer, we can easily integrate a soccer field in the back. We have in the past. So none of this stuff is really new, but I'm just real excited to get this done and moving forward for sure.
Okay, Councilor McKenna, comments or questions? No. Councilor Clark.
A couple of people have, and it was in the list of the wish list there about tennis or pickleball court or something. I'm not sure how that could be stuck in the park somewhere. I know we have an unopened road allowance around the corner of the back. I don't know if that's something to think about, or anyway, it's all stuff to think about.
Okay. Perfect. I think Morgan, this is a really good idea to have this presentation. It gets kind of everything into the forefront of our mind before budget time. So then we do get into the budget discussions that we can, jump right into it, because I'm sure between now and that budget time, we're going to be thinking about the Kerwood Park and what we should be looking forward to for phase 2. And if there's any specific things that the council's looking at. And it's also, when you're bumping into people in the community, tell them, let the folks know that we're, what we're doing at the Kerwood Park, and we're going to be discussing this. And if there's any ideas that they have, then you can also bring those forward on behalf of those residents. Morgan.
Just to Councillor Clark's comment about the tennis or pickleball court, we'll dig into that one, see how it could potentially work within the site and what the associated costs are. So I'll make sure to bring that back to the budget discussions. And then, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, if council has any ideas or concepts they'd like us to dig into, just shoot me a note and we're happy to dig into them.
Perfect. The only comment I have so far is we need to get that Canada 150 tree planted. We had a motion back several years ago. We haven't planted that tree. We need to get that tree planted because it was a motion on the books, and that's one of those check boxes we need to have completed. All right. It doesn't look like we have a motion for this report. We're good with that, Mike, our clerk. We don't need anything for it. Nope. Okay, so at this time, it looks like it's our closed session. So we need to have a motion from council that we go into closed session at 8:01, and that's under section 239(2)K of the Municipal Act. And this is regarding the Adelaide Metcalfe Strathroy Caradoc servicing agreement along Central Road, and also to approve the December 6, 2021 closed meeting minutes. So we have a mover and seconder for that. Councilor McKinnon, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hendricks. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's carried, and we will be back live on YouTube after that's completed to talk about other business on our agenda here, and then